Hey, thank you for listening to the Vegan Ambition podcast. I'm here to let you know that you can visit us on our website at theveganambition.com or on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. We post new content every single day. And now, time for the podcast. Hey, I'm Ruji, and today we're joined with Carly, and I'm Ruji. Welcome to the Vegan Ambition podcast number 18. Today's main question is, what is your view on using animals for scientific testing? But before we start, I'd like to thank today's sponsors, and that is Farmhouse Garden Animal Home, Zucchini, and of course, sweet potatoes. This podcast is a tool to help vegans, vegetarians, and anyone else who's interested in a plant-based lifestyle. The Vegan Ambition is a no-pressure zone and a no-hostility zone. We don't pressure our guests, but are simply here to discuss different viewpoints. I hope you'll join us on this journey, and education is our biggest goal here. And this is Carly. Carly is a vegan activist, world traveler, and lover of all animals. Can you tell me a bit about yourself and what you do, Carly?
Hi, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I studied at York University in Toronto, and I did biochemistry and psychology, and I was planning on doing dentistry with all of that. And then when I went vegan about 3.5 years ago, I was on a semester abroad in Sydney, and for the first time I was responsible for making my own choices in a more in the sense of I was responsible for all the food that was in my fridge and all the things that I was stocking my place with. Like, I was the one actually buying it. So I had a couple friends.
So I guess you lived at home when you went to school.
Yes. And then when I did my second year abroad in Sydney, it was kind of the first time where from the type of toilet paper I was buying to what I was stocking my fridge with, like, everything was just my choice. So I started kind of questioning the options that I had and which one would be the best option. And I had friends that were vegan and recommended I watched a documentary called Earthlings. And I had heard that it was really graphic, and it showed basically footage of all the industries in which we exploit animals and all the ways that we use them as humans in our society. And I was really hesitant to watch it because I kind of had this feeling deep down that it would make me want to make different choices in regards to the animal products that I was purchasing and consuming. But I finally decided to just sit down and watch it. And I told myself that, it doesn't mean that I was going to change anything, but I just wanted to have all the information to make a conscious choice. And it was the first time that I'd ever really watched anything like that. And it really blew my mind. Like, I think that we have this misconception that that animals dance merrily into the slaughterhouse and something humane happens and then they come out chopped into pieces. But to actually witness the reality of what's going on in these industries was a real shock to me, and it inspired me to make different choices. And then the more I learned about the health side of things and the environmental side of things, I just got more and more passionate in my advocacy and in my new choices. I was hesitant to call myself a vegan for the first few months, just because I'm like, I might be doing something wrong, or I won't know how to answer people's questions. But I just told people that I was cutting out like animal products, and that's how I kind of worded it.
Oh, nice.
And then the more I learned about the vegan movement and the and just how it's so related to everything we care about and how it's such a far-reaching choice to make, I became so proud to use that word and to advocate for it. And then it seemed kind of silly to dedicate so much of my life going into dentistry when this was really my true passion. So this last year I've been trying to make more of a career of vegan advocacy, and we've been my partner James and I have been traveling around, and James does speeches at high schools and universities and conferences, and I've been helping to arrange these events and doing activism events at all the places we go to, and focusing a lot on online content and advocacy, like through our social media channels and stuff like that. So it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, to go from nothing to just Earthlings being the inspiration is like, and now look at you, you're like a huge vegan activist. I would say probably one of the top vegan activists around.
Well, thank you. There are definitely people doing a lot more than I am, but yeah, I think that it helps to be super passionate about what you're doing, and I just couldn't imagine, dedicating my life to anything else at this point.
Yeah, and it's funny, I actually didn't watch Earthlings until about 2 months ago.
Okay.
And like I watched it and I was like, oh wow, this really explains everything.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there is really needs to like wants to learn everything in one go, Earthlings is like a great starting point because Joaquin Phoenix just talks about everything. And
Yeah.
he's the director, I think, or he
I
basically
think
made
he's the
Earthlings.
co-producer. Sean
Yeah.
Monson is the
Oh,
executive
okay.
producer. But I think that so he's also the narrator on a new documentary that just came out earlier this year called Dominion, and it's very
Mm,
similar to Earthlings, but it's basically just because Earthlings is over a decade old now. So Dominion is
right.
basically like brand new footage. It's like high definition drone footage. It's just a little bit more enjoyable to watch cinematography. It's definitely not like enjoyable to watch. It's still graphic footage, and it's going to be quite a shock. But if you were going to choose one of those documentaries, I would choose Dominion. And as of October 10th, actually, it's totally free to watch. They're making it free to stream and download if you go to watchdominion.com. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
So how did you get into the activism? Um,
That's a good
like
question.
yeah, like what started that?
Well, when I came back from Australia after having gone vegan while I was there, for the first little while I was back in Toronto, it was difficult for me because I was having to explain to all my friends and family that I'd made this change, and I didn't really have a network yet. Like I knew vegans online, and I was like social media friends with vegans, but I didn't really have any real life vegan friends. And I remember I was walking to class one day at York University, and someone handed me a leaflet from like these tables that were happening in the main hall. And it was from a vegan club at York. So I was like, oh my God, yes, my people. And I joined the club. And I think a month or two later, we actually put on a screening of Earthlings where we were paying students $10 if they could sit through the documentary. And then after the documentary, there was like free vegan pizza and other
Ten
vegan
bucks. I'll
snacks,
take it.
right? So it was a really successful event, and we got, I think, 150 people to watch
Wow.
Earthlings, which was really awesome. And after the screening, we had people talk. We had Anita Cranch. Actually, I totally mispronounced her last name, but Anita from Toronto Pig Save. She came and
Right.
spoke
Yeah.
about the ethics of veganism, and we had a nutritionist speaking about where the best places to get easy vegan food on campus was. So it was a really successful event, and that was the first time that I'd ever done any kind of activism event. And for the first time, I was like, "Whoa!" Like you take the time to plan something, and look at all these seeds planted. Like dozens of people went vegan from that event, and if not vegan, like so many people had seeds planted or extra points added to their bucket where they might not have gone vegan then, but they were really interested in taking a step on that path and in that direction. So I was so inspired by that event, and I did a couple more with the vegan club at York. And I think the first like non-university activism event I went to was there's an organization called Toronto Pig Save, and it's also Toronto Cow Save and Toronto Chicken Save. It's the Save
Right. Right.
movement, which was founded in Toronto, and they basically do vigils outside slaughterhouses. So the point of it is to bear witness to the animals entering the slaughterhouse on the transport trucks. And at least for me, the biggest point of it is to be able to get footage, because there's this really powerful in between when the animals are entering the slaughterhouse in these like
Yeah.
trucks where you see them through like the bars of the truck and through the air holes, and they're just like sticking their snouts out and just kind of enjoying their first taste of sunlight and fresh air possibly ever in their lives. And then in about 15 minutes they're about to be prodded into a gas chamber and having their throat slit. So to be able to get footage of them entering the slaughterhouse, and because normally there's an agreement with the slaughterhouse and with the activists where the trucks will stop for a minute or two before entering the slaughterhouse, just so we can say goodbye to the animals and get the footage and give them water, because oftentimes they've been on the trucks for 2 or 3 days without any food or water, and they're so thirsty. So just to give them a small moment of compassion before their lives are about to be violently ended. So it's a very powerful form of activism. And I had heard about them, but I was kind of hesitant to go. And they were doing this all-day vigil. I think summer 2016, I want to say. And they were having all these special guests coming and doing little speeches and motivational, workshops and stuff like that in terms of how to be a better advocate. So there was a few people going to that who I wanted to meet, and I ended up just going, and people were so friendly and welcoming and open, and it wasn't like a hostile, aggressive environment the way I kind of was thinking it would be.
Right.
Everyone was just like very kind to each other, and even to like the slaughterhouse workers, there was just like really great, positive, like friendly debates going on. There was no shaming, there was no anger. So yeah, it was
yeah.
really
I think a lot of people like see that kind of footage online, and there are some vegan activists who are a bit aggressive at times. And I think that that's changing a little bit, but yeah, one thing that people should always know is that, like, I mean, you and me, we are never aggressive to non-vegans.
Yeah.
We understand that, like, we were like that once, and that it's kind of like hypocritical to be aggressive to non-vegans, but
of course,
we do want to encourage that. And so if you meet me in the street, or you meet Carly in the street, you should know we will not be mean to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that you should be the kind of vegan that you would have wanted to meet before you were vegan, and
Exactly.
and forget about the obviously the importance of being kind to one another and being compassionate to other humans as well, but just in terms of being effective as an advocate, like, people aren't going to listen to you if they're on the defense and you guys are having a discussion where you're being aggressive and mean and personal attacks, and that's not going to go anywhere in terms of getting them a step closer to not contributing to animal agriculture. So I think that for in many ways it's a much better option to just be respectful and kind of stay up, even if the person in the discussion is like kind of slipping down into a more negative, hostile place, to just try to bring them back up and come from a place of just like love and compassion and understanding for wherever they are on their path. So
And I mean, one of the things that's really powerful, not just the, like, being able to meet the pigs, but I remember watching, I think it was actually one of James's videos one time, and you can hear in the background the pigs squealing when the gas, like, when they get gassed, essentially, at these factories, and it is like heart-wrenching. It just destroys you, and I don't know how anybody can sit through that and not be upset by it, because it's destructive to the heart. It is so powerful and so insane that this is happening on the size and scale that is happening every day. It's crazy to think about.
It's 8 billion lives a day. If we include marine animals, it's 8 billion a day, which is just crazy. Unfathomable.
No, I don't even know how we've gotten to be able to do that. Like, that's so many lives.
Yeah, and it can be tough. Like the footage I think you're talking about was from Perth, Australia. If you go to the Toronto Pig Day vigils, you can't really hear what's going on inside the slaughterhouse because the entrance is further away from where the actual killing happens. But we were at a slaughterhouse in Australia where, yeah, you can hear them screaming. Like, you can hear them literally screaming for their lives. And I've heard this really awful footage from a goat slaughterhouse where because the cries that goats make actually sound so much like humans, and it's just, it's haunting. It's horrific and haunting. And whether you're seeing it in person, the brave people that actually go into factory farms and slaughterhouses and get this footage to share, or whether you're watching a documentary like Earthlings or Dominion, like it definitely affects you. But I think that you have to just consciously try to make a positive out of it, even when it seems like there's not any. My boyfriend James always says that, like, when he's feeling kind of upset at a vigil, for example, to just switch it around and be like, whoa, but look how many people are here compared to last month, and look how many people are out here fighting for them, and all these people have their phones out and they're getting footage to post on their Instagram story. So think about how many people are going to see this and be inspired to make changes, and then less are going to be bred into existence in the future, and we're a step closer to ending these industries. So to just try to, it's hard, and it doesn't ever get, it's not ever easy, but it can. I think that you can relieve a little bit of that sadness by trying to put it into action and just focus on how what you're doing and what you're witnessing can help end it, so that other individuals don't have to endure what these ones are.
And that's amazing. I mean, it's so nice to see and to hear every year that, you know, this is growing and that it's getting better. I mean, even for me, I mean, I went vegan a year and a half ago, and I remember going in the grocery store here in Canada and being like, there's like a couple options, you know, there's some like veggie meat, there's some stuff. Now I go there, every grocery store has like double, if not triple,
it's like
as many
skyrocketed
options.
It's crazy.
I know. It's amazing. And it's just gonna keep growing, hopefully.
And Waterloo is near London, Ontario, right? That's where you go?
Yeah, it's not far from London.
So they actually just opened a 24-hour vegan like junk food drive-through called Globally Local. So they have like cheeseburgers and mac and cheese and like all your favorite comfort food favorites, but without any animal products. So that's pretty cool. And you have a bunch of vegan restaurants there too.
Yeah, I haven't been to Globally Local yet. It's on my bucket list to go to. One place that's really good that's in this area but isn't in Toronto, when you're back, because I know you come back here once in a while. It's called Boone Burger.
Oh, Boone Burger, I've been there. It's good.
It's so good. I don't know. I want them to just exponentially grow, because not only are they vegan, they're just so tasty.
I know. They have amazing food. It's great to hear that A&W have the Beyond Meat burger now as well. And actually, my friend was just saying that she went there to get one, and like everyone in front of her in line, like there was like 6 people, all of them went and ordered the Beyond burger. So it just goes to show, like, I mean, it's just getting to the point where it's so convenient, and it's so it's such an easy swap to just, even if you feel like a fast food hamburger, you can just go get the one that isn't made with like ground up cow corpse, and you can just get something that tastes exactly like a hamburger, has the same nutrient profile, the same amount of protein, basically the same taste, and you're just making a more conscious, compassionate choice that isn't exploiting our fellow earthlings. So it's really it's been really crazy to see the boom in the market for all of these vegan products, and and just how literally everything you could possibly want to eat, you can find a vegan version of it, and it's getting more and more accessible for everyone.
Yeah, and not only that, but I went there with my brother-in-law one time, and I mean, my brother-in-law is like he's a meat eater. I'm trying to change it, but it's taking time. Yeah. But you know, he said that he used to love A&W, but he found that like over time that it like was very heavy for him when he went there. So one time we went there together, and he got the veggie burger, like the Beyond Burger. He was like, "This is amazing." He was like, not only do I feel great, but that tasted super good, and like now I'll come back and get it, basically.
Totally. There you go.
And I think one time even we were hanging out, and he just like and he went and got it also, or they were out or something, but he tried to get it basically, because it's good and it feels good. Like you don't feel, I don't know, like I don't remember how it feels to eat meat anymore. But I just remember people like saying, and I've heard this a lot, that people feel like very heavy after eating meat.
Totally.
And, like, I don't feel like that ever. So. Oh,
and when you think about like it just sitting in your intestines, like we have the physiology of herbivores. Like we have very long intestines meant to process all the plant matter. We have, our saliva, our teeth, like all of it is meant to be eating plants, not flesh. That really is not what our physiology points towards. So we're very much behaviorally omnivores, but we're not physiologically omnivores. So I think that most people who go vegan end up seeing like really incredible health benefits in terms of like how they feel, and also in a deeper, more like long-term way of preventing so many chronic diseases, because the science is conclusive now, like that animal products cause heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and all of these chronic diseases that so many of us are going to suffer from. But I personally like try to stay away from the health argument, because some people feel good with some animal products in their diet. So that really isn't, I think, a conclusive enough reason as to why someone should go fully vegan, because I think it's very easy to say, oh, well, I could eat mostly plant-based and have animal products once in a while. So in terms of the health side of things, I really always try to shift the discussion back to, every single essential nutrient we need to thrive, we can find in non-animal foods. So if we don't need to be doing it, then it's unnecessary violence. And most of us agree that causing unnecessary violence is wrong. So although, you can watch Forks Over Knives on Netflix and What the Health on Netflix, and there's so many incredible resources to look into in terms of the health benefits. Also, nutritionfacts.org and veganhealth.org are really good resources. But yeah, it just comes down to, whether or not it's healthier, and it is. If you look at all the research, all the recent nutrition science, it's just not necessary, like, to be getting the same nutrients you can get from plants, but like filtered through someone's exploited and killed body. Like, why?
And so we're moving on to our sponsored call, which is Farmhouse Garden Animal Home, which you've been there, right?
I have. I love it there.
Yeah, it is my favorite sanctuary. I've only been to one sanctuary ever, and this is the only one I've ever been to. But Farmhouse Garden Animal Home's mission is to provide a safe home for the animals in their care. They want to show others that farm animals deserve love and compassion. Each of their animals is a unique individual, and by learning and interacting with them, Farmhouse hopes to teach others to love them as well. Farmhouse Garden Animal Home subsides entirely on donations. They're a non-profit, and they have 30 cows, 2 horses, 2 ducks, I think 5 chickens, and a couple other animals that I don't remember off the top of my head. So please consider donating to them or visiting them in their beautiful location in Uxbridge. You can find them on the web, on Facebook, Instagram, or by visiting farmhousegardenanimalhome.com. Thanks, Farmhouse Garden Animal Home, for sponsoring today's podcast. And you love that sanctuary, right?
Oh yeah, I think it's incredible. I mean, and their story is so cool too. That Mike was a beef farmer who had a change of heart and then decided to stop breeding his animals, the animals that he cared for, and stop sending them to slaughter. So it's pretty incredible to go there and visit and connect with these individuals who would otherwise have their bodies chopped up and be for sale in some grocery store. Like, it's just so surreal when you're meeting these individuals at sanctuaries who are so unique and special in their own way, and like so very obviously sentient, conscious individuals, the same way that our dogs and cats are. So visiting sanctuaries is such an important, I think it's such an important addition to everyone's transition to veganism, to be able to connect with the individuals in these industries. Definitely.
And I mean, Farmhouse specifically was a cattle ranch for 3 generations.
Yeah.
And they were doing it to subside, basically to help pay for their vegetable operation. And then one day, the story specifically goes that one day Mike was feeding a baby cow that he had helped to just get to like the point of like being able to survive, essentially. And he was feeding her, and he essentially was like, I don't want to send her off to slaughter. I don't want to have to do that. And that's when he contacted Edith, and started working with Edith to see what they could do.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah. So Carly, I'd like to get on today's main question, which is, what's your view on using animals for scientific testing?
I think you could probably guess my view, but it's unethical. It's the most horrific. It's one of the most horrific things that exists right now in this world, that we are breeding individuals into existence to basically be enslaved and literally tortured in laboratories and cosmetic testing facilities and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's bad science. It doesn't often translate into human results for the same trials. Okay. And we have so many alternatives nowadays, and it's just barbaric and unnecessary and horrific, and something that I think that it is definitely on its way out, and something that we're going to look back on with horror, that we did this to innocent individuals. Yeah.
Now, I don't know a lot about the bad science element of it.
Okay.
What makes it bad science?
Basically, so animal trials are often not applicable to human trials. So even if So even if something is tested on animals, it often has to be still tested on humans before it can be released to market, or can be, or before any conclusion can be reached in terms of the study's hypothesis. So it often isn't even like a necessary step in the equation. And I'm definitely no researcher, but I have been reading really interesting alternatives, including like working on, how you can grow pieces of human flesh from cells and be testing on that and stuff like that. I definitely am not an expert on this, but if you search for vivisection alternatives, there's sites dedicated to talking about the science behind the alternatives. And and even if we didn't have like a specific alternative for this specific test, like this shouldn't even be an option. Like the same way that, it could help a lot of people if we do this to a baby, like we'd be like, nah, like that's a human, they're worthy of protection. And even though they're a baby and can't fight back, and, and that they're kind of helpless in a way, of course, we're not going to, do something to this baby, even if it could help an adult human, say. And that should most definitely extend to non-human animals as well. They're sentient and conscious the same way that we are. They feel pain, they suffer. To be making a decision to inflict so much suffering on a sentient individual, just there's no excuse for that. There's nothing that could ever justify that. And I think that, the means, or is it, no, the means need to justify the ends, or would it be the other way around? But what I'm trying to say is that, it doesn't matter what we're getting out of it if it involves doing something so immoral and horrific to someone in the process.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I agree. I'm just trying to figure out like what someone on the other side would say, and I mean, I think that there are. The thing that I think people would say is, well, isn't it worth it still? Because, isn't it is, and that gets into a bit of speciesism, right? And it's like, well, are we gonna put human lives above animal lives in some situations?
Right. Well, I'm reading a really interesting book right now called Eternal Treblinka. I'd highly, highly recommend it. And it basically talks about the parallels between human slavery and the things that we have done to groups of humans in the past and what we are doing to animals. And I think that you mentioned speciesism, which is basically this system of oppression that kind of has indoctrinated us to believe that it's humans at the top and then all other animals below. Right. And that really isn't based on anything of substance, because when you ask people why, they would say something like, okay, well, maybe intelligence. But then when you break that down and you say, well, there are lots of humans who are very unintelligent, and even ones that have certain disabilities that really make it so that they have a particularly low IQ. Does that mean that they are not worthy of consideration as an individual who has, still has their rights that include not being enslaved and not being killed? So, and you could say things like, well, humans have accomplished all these things and symphonies and buildings and all this stuff. And I mean, that's still, it doesn't, if you actually break it down, there's nothing that separates us, that makes it so that we are so much better than all of these other animals, and that we are entitled to their lives and their bodies, and it's really not based in anything of substance when you break it down. But even if someone wants to have the mindset of, okay, well, we're superior, and they want to believe that, I don't even think it's necessary to disagree with that to make my point, because if you want to believe that we are stronger than all the other animals and that we are smarter, that we are superior, then shouldn't we use that power that we have to have mercy on those weaker and not as strong and not as intelligent as us? So it just, either way you want to look at it, why would we unnecessarily harm others if we don't have to? It still comes down to that. And I think that in terms of the vivisection thing, it's a bit of a hard conversation to have, because if we are still systemically exploiting billions of animals every day for nothing more than because we like the way they taste. It's very hard to have a conversation with someone who is still paying for animal exploitation just because they like the way they taste, and then have a conversation saying, okay, well, it's still wrong to exploit someone even if it's saving a human's life. So I think that it's a tricky conversation to have, before you already come to the conclusion with someone of yes, when it's unnecessary, it's wrong. Because so many people are still believing that even when it's unnecessary, we still have a right to be violent to them. So it's going to be very difficult to convince them that when it is, quote unquote necessary in terms of for human survival, then it's wrong. So, it comes down to speciesism, but I think that we're going to get to the point, hopefully, where step by step, we're going to be abolishing these industries that exploit our fellow earthlings. So it might not necessarily start with something like vivisection. It might start with our food choices, right? And because nowadays we can get every single essential nutrient from non-animal sources, that's a really easy first start to be okay, this is definitely completely unnecessary to be breeding animals into existence, to use their bodies and their secretions to eat. So let's start with that. And then I think that as awareness grows about seeing other animals as individuals and non-human people in their own right, then more and more alternatives and solutions to vivisection will be brought up and discovered. But it's pretty. It just comes down to would you want to be in that position? So I think that it always comes down to that, in terms of to widening our circle of compassion. To embrace all non-human animals, would you want to be in their position in terms of what we're doing to them in these labs and in these testing facilities?
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I totally get that. I totally agree with that. Carly, did you know that zucchinis are a great low-calorie food? They also have 0 saturated fats and 0 cholesterol, I believe. And also they're high in dietary fiber, and they're an excellent source of potassium. Zucchini is also a very versatile vegetable and can be placed into many different types of dishes. Some examples are ratatouille, simply grilled or baked zucchini, and zucchini pesto, which I found out about while researching this, so I have to go make it now.
And you can make zoodles too, like you can turn it into noodles and use it for a base.
Yeah, totally true. Thanks, Zucchini, for sponsoring today's podcast. All right, Carly.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah? I've never heard an ad for zucchini before. So I just have to say that was an interesting experience for me, because so much of the time we talk about how, the meat and dairy and egg industries are all about the propaganda. And if you look at how that say that these foods are healthful for us, it's almost always sponsored by these industries, and how many ads we see online and stuff, and how a lot of vegans say, well, you won't see any ads for big broccoli or big watermelon, and I just heard an ad for zucchini, so that was
there you go.
I'll have to change what I say in terms of that.
Yeah, big zucchini, they contacted me, and they said, well, yeah, we'll give you a lot of money for this. No, I was thinking about what to do as a sponsor call, kind of in between. Yeah. And I just thought, people they eat lots of vegetables, but they don't know a lot about them. Yeah. And so I do 3 sponsor calls, and they're usually a vegetable or fruit or something like that every single podcast. That's
brilliant. That's the way that all ads should be. Here's why you should eat this vegetable.
Yeah. All right. I want to know if you have any recommendations. Am I right to say that you're waste free all the time, or is there?
Oh, definitely
or are you just
not.
Okay, so you know a lot about it, though.
I've been learning more about our disposable plastic use and just other ways that we produce waste. Basically, when I went vegan, it kind of opened the floodgates to just caring about stuff and realizing that I had such a powerful vote as a consumer to be, voting with my dollar and changing what I buy if I wasn't if the practices of what I was buying wasn't in alignment with my values. So I started questioning things like where my clothes were being made and where they were coming from, and the waste that I was producing, where was that going? Was it actually getting recycled? And just learning more about, I guess, the zero waste movement, the environmental movement, and just trying to integrate what I learned as much as possible.
So that's amazing, but I want to know, what are your tips to people who want to be waste-free and vegan, and what are your tips to do that while traveling as well?
Okay. I would say...
I know it's a hard question. There's a lot to it.
All right, I'll try to break it down. So I think that it's all going to be individual because it depends on where you're creating the most waste. So I would say that the first step, if you want to try to be more mindful, actually, the pre-step to this would be kind of look into the effects that how much waste we're producing is having on the environment, and all the plastic that we're putting into landfills, and how much of it like ends up in the ocean, and just the devastation it's having on the planet. So there's a really great documentary called A Plastic Ocean, which I'd recommend. And yeah, Seaspiracy on YouTube is another really good one. It's a little 15-minute short documentary.
Seaspiracy.
Seaspiracy, yes.
Almost like Cowspiracy.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but more about the ocean specifically.
Right.
So that's I guess my precursor would just be to just learn a little bit more about how environmentally devastating this really is. And then my first step would just be to analyze in your daily life where you're creating the most waste. So if you're someone who likes to get a coffee on your way to work every morning, and you're getting that disposable cup from Starbucks and putting in the recycling thinking everything's okay, that might be something to reconsider, because those cups actually aren't recyclable because they're lined with plastic. And even if something is recyclable, 90% of the time it's actually going to get sent to landfill anyway because of contamination of little food particles, or it's not usable, or basically recycling is not the solution. And I would say that the biggest step that you could take would be to look at all the areas that you're using the most disposable stuff and switch to reusables. So if every day for lunch you end up getting some plastic cutlery to eat your lunch with, just keep a fork and a little butter knife in your bag, wrapped in it can be as simple as just taking some from your cutlery kit at home and wrapping it in a tea towel. But they also make really cute little travel size, light bamboo ones that you can get online very easily. Actually, I think there was a store that just opened in Toronto called Logan and Finley, and they have a bunch of zero waste hack tools.
Cool. I'll have to look into that.
But I mean, zero waste doesn't necessarily mean buying more stuff. It can just mean working with what you have, and kind of phasing out the things that you're using a lot of in terms of disposables and switching to reusables. So that would be the main thing. Another good example would be to just switch to a reusable coffee cup, just bring around one of those travel mugs. But even if you can't afford one of those, you can just use an old mason jar that you've cleaned out and cut up an old sock and use that as a sleeve over the mason jar, the top of a sock. I saw that someone posted on Instagram, I forget who, but there's lots of
great idea.
Yeah, there's lots of easy zero waste hacks that don't cost any money that you can start integrating. I guess for me, it's kind of gotten to the point where if you're spending a whole day out, where you're going to be maybe getting some food or drink that you would need to bring around your reusables for to not create any waste. It just involves kind of having a couple, having your toolkit in your backpack or in your purse, and just having a piece of cutlery. I actually have this really cute bamboo spork where one side of it is a spoon and one side of it is a fork with a serrated edge. So it has the fork, knife, and spoon all in one, and it's super light. And then bring around, if you're someone that drinks a lot of hot drinks, just bring around a reusable mug, obviously a reusable water bottle. You can get ones with little filters in them, so you can just fill it up with tap water and it filters it for you. But it really is going to depend on your own habits and taking a look at where you produce the most waste day to day, and little things you can swap it over for. And then in terms of travel, that covered a lot of it. But I guess a few other things would be, when you go grocery shopping, either just put the produce directly in your cart, or bring little produce bags to put it in, and obviously bringing your own a canvas bags to put all your stuff in at the end, so you don't have to use any plastic bags. Also, bulk shopping is really great for the things that you can't really find without a package in a normal grocery store, maybe nuts or oats or pasta, or even bulk, like rice and beans, you can get that at a bulk shop and just bring your own little bags, and then you can transfer that into jars when you get home. So you can essentially, if you're doing mostly whole foods, you can essentially get most of your food without packaging if you just plan ahead a little bit, because you can get your produce without packaging, and then you can get your like bulk stuff. I mean, your like dry stuff from a bulk store. So I'm definitely not perfect with it. There's a few things that are more difficult than others. Like, for example, unless you're going to a farmer's market, it's really hard to find berries without plastic packaging.
Right.
And I really enjoy having my fresh blueberries. So I still get those little plastic cartons of blueberries and then just put that in the recycling. But yeah, that's definitely not the ideal solution. I feel guilty every time I do that.
I remember one time during the summer though, I was living at home, and my like family brought this like huge like 5-pound box of blueberries.
Oh gosh, that's my heaven.
It was in like a carton box. I don't know if you've ever seen those in the grocery store where they're usually filled with like tomatoes or like peaches or something.
They're compostable, those little ones. I think
thing. No, I mean, it's like a huge one, and it was just all blueberries. It was, I think I just ate blueberries that whole week.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I just wanted to add that to say, like, it's not about perfection. If there's certain things that you are having trouble finding like a plastic-free alternative for, don't beat yourself up about it. But it's about all the things that you do have an easy alternative for, like the coffee mug I mentioned, or the cutlery, or the bags at the grocery store. Like, there are really easy to use swaps for those things. So just all the things that there are an alternative for, you may as well just swap those over. And then the things that there aren't, I guess that's just, it depends if you want to, how far you want to go with it. But it's definitely possible to live like a close to zero waste lifestyle if you do have access to a bulk store and good produce at your local grocery store or farmer's market. But that there's lots of amazing people that post a lot of tips about their zero waste lifestyle on Instagram. If you follow like I think low impact movement, that's a hashtag that I follow that has a lot of tips under it. And I guess just like zero waste in general. But it's been interesting to see it integrating with veganism, because it's not directly related to animal exploitation, but animals end up animals end up suffering from the plastic waste in the oceans and pollution. So it's definitely related in an indirect way, and it's something that we should be mindful of, definitely.
Now, what about traveling? Because I mean, when I went like abroad for a while, I found it pretty hard most of the time to be waste free, even with like stuff like airport food and all that kind of thing. So are there any like big tips that you kind of would give people?
Well, plane travel itself is very not eco-friendly. It's like the worst way that you can travel. But if you have an option on your ticket to buy like the carbon offset, where they'll plant an amount of trees that like is equivalent to how much carbon you released on that flight, that's a good option. But I mean, it really just depends on what you're flying for. Like, if you're like, a lot of the time we're flying to places for events that hopefully end up turning a lot of people vegan and end up influencing a lot of people. So we kind of weigh the pros and the cons of that. But definitely air travel is not the best way. And I look forward to when we do have an alternative for that. That's not like an unreasonable option, like take a 6-month boat trip instead of flying there, So I mean, hopefully we get to the point at some point in the future where we have renewable energy fueled planes, but I don't know how close we are to that. But in terms of more practical tips for when you do have to fly somewhere, we actually end up not really getting any airport food. I mean, sometimes we do, but our general rule that we like to stick to is just to make it kind of a fast. Like, doing occasional fasting is really good for your body and your digestive system. So if we have a pretty long flight, we'll kind of just make that our fast day, like from the time we wake up to like when we arrive at the next place, and just drink a lot of water with our reusable water bottles that we bring. But there are tons of vegan options at airports and stuff if you want to find them. Like, you can usually go to those little restaurants before you get on the plane and find a vegan burrito or
You know,
vegan pizza or lots of options. But in terms of the actual plain food, we usually
yeah.
don't actually have it because I think it's because I think you have to call in advance and request a vegan meal, and we just are too lazy for
Really?
that. Or maybe you can
Actually,
do it online.
yeah, I
Perhaps
think
it's
you could do
easier
it
than
on.
that.
I think you can do it online. The last time I flew, all I had to do was just like check off it's actually I think most flights it's called vegetarian meal,
Okay.
non-dairy. Um and you
That
just have
might
to
have
like
eggs though.
no, they don't have
Oh, okay,
eggs.
good.
Yeah. At least for Air Canada it's like that. So I like had to check. I checked with them a couple times though, like just to make sure, but I was like I have to eat, so I like
Yeah, no, that's a great option.
had to make sure. But one of the most amazing things I ever saw was I think it was in South Korea, and in the airport in the terminal, they had this like little machine. I know this isn't waste free, but
Yeah.
they had this little machine, and it was like basically an iPad strapped to like a stand, and it was for like this like cafeteria place, and you could go on it and say what allergies you had. Oops. You could say what allergies you had. You could say what you didn't eat. You could say like whether you were vegan or vegetarian or whatever, and it would
Hmm.
tell you exactly what you could order at every single one of the restaurants in that little cafeteria.
That's incredible. Wow.
And it was mind blowing. I was like, why is this not available everywhere in the whole
Right?
wide world?
Yeah, well,
Please.
it's not as technologically advanced, but I don't know if you've heard of happycow.net, the site, and you can
Yeah,
also download an
love
app.
Happy Cow.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
basically shows you all like the vegan options near you. So it's really great when you're traveling to just anytime you have Wi-Fi, just go on Happy Cow and it shows you like by distance all the places that have vegan options near you, which is really great.
Yeah. And they have an app too. So
Yeah.
for iPhones and for Androids.
It's great.
Yeah. So I have another sponsor call.
All right.
Sweet Potato, big Sweet Potato paid me for this. Uh, Sweet potatoes have some phenomenal qualities. As such, sweet potatoes may help maintain a healthy blood pressure, and they also have a high dietary fiber level. Sweet potatoes are also considered low on the glycemic index, and some example of dishes that can be made with sweet potatoes are sweet potato fries, sweet potato soup, and a sweet potato casserole. Thanks, Sweet Potato, for sponsoring today's podcast. Before we finish up, Carly, is there
Yes.
anything else that you want to say to people?
I guess I'll just tie in the vegan thing and the zero waste thing with basically just saying that there's a lot of things wrong with the world, and I know that it can be kind of daunting to look at the news some days and just feel like all these terrible things are happening and you can't really change them. But there are very few things that we personally are directly contributing to, and I would say that our food choices, our clothing choices, and the waste that we're producing are three of the major ones that we can take a step back and say that I have a vote with my dollar as a consumer, and either I can pay for these practices or I can pay for these practices. And especially with veganism, this is the most violence happening in the world is happening in the animal agriculture industries right now. And there's no such thing really as being a neutral bystander, because either you are funding it or you're not funding it. So
Right.
I think that the moral baseline should be veganism. The moral baseline should be not contributing to unnecessary violence, because most of us share that value, that we believe that causing unnecessary violence is wrong and should be avoided. And that's not new. Like, most people already feel that way, the vast majority of people. So it's really just about aligning your actions with your already existing values and realizing that every time I pay for meat, dairy, eggs, any animal product, I am putting money towards this industry, and basically when you make that gap on the shelf, it's going to be filled down the line. Another individual is going to be bred into existence by forcible insemination. Another individual is going to be separated from their mother. Another individual is going to be enslaved and exploited for their whole life. And another individual is going to have their life ended against their will at a fraction of their lifespan so that we can eat their body. And for something that we no longer need to be doing nowadays in 2018. It is just such an important cause. It's so far-reaching. Everything we care about, animal cruelty health, the environment. We could take massive strides towards ending world hunger if we repurpose the land we are using to grow crops to feed to farmed animals. And we have enough food right now. We're growing enough food to feed the world. We could end world hunger. 20,000 human children die of starvation every day. This doesn't need to happen. So, I mean, that's just a small handful of things. If you start researching veganism, you'll go down the rabbit hole. And but it's basically the most far-reaching, easy choice you can make to have a real big impact on this world. And advocating for veganism doesn't need to mean being a stereotypical activist and throwing blood on yourself and running down the street. It can really just be just talking to your friends and family about it and being confident in your answers and being well researched and being able to answer their questions in a logical, calm, positive way. And maybe posting some stuff on social media once in a while, because we have such powerful tools in our pockets with our phones. Even if you don't have a big platform, most people have at least 100 followers of their friends and family. And that's incredible. Like, every day you have a platform of 100 people at the very least listening to you. So I think that we really should be taking advantage of that and spreading good things and sharing information. But if anyone has any questions about going vegan, they're always welcome to reach out to me on Instagram, Carly Taylor 269, and I assume you as well. And there's two really great resources, challenge22.com and vegankit.com. Both just basically help people with a 22 day. Well, I don't know how many days the Vegan Kit Challenge is, but both basically just arm you with the resources and the recipes and the answers to your questions. It's both free, and they just help you try out a vegan lifestyle. So I definitely would recommend everyone look into this, because it's the best thing I've ever done. Most vegans would say it's the best thing they've ever done. And it's an easy swap that can fit in with your lifestyle, whatever you're doing, whatever career you're in. You can also be not supporting the animal agriculture industries at the same time. So.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank today's sponsors, which were Farmhouse Garden Animal Home, Zucchini, Sweet Potato. I'd like to thank Carly and you, the listeners, for being here with us today. As Carly said, you can find her on Instagram at CarlyTaylor269, and she also has a YouTube channel, and that is called James and Carly. If you have a suggestion, a question, you want to be a sponsor, or you want to be on an episode, you can send me an email at veganambitionpodcast@gmail.com or visit my website, theveganambition.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.